Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Nkenji Wheatland. I work for zyBooks. And what I'm going to do today is just kind of go through a quick demo with you to show you how to use zyLab. So this is how to do a zyLab that's been assigned to you. I'm just showing you the kind of different pieces and parts of the zyLab, where to write your code, how to get your grades, and then how to resubmit your code, because you can submit your code multiple times. So pretty much what you're going to do is you're going to go to your home page for your book. You'll click on the chapter that your lab is in and find your lab. So I have a lab here that I've called demo. And in the lab, first you'll see your instructions for that lab. So the instructions for this lab are accept an integer as input, double the integer, and output the result followed by a new line. You'll then have a window right below, and inside this window is where you'll actually be able to write your code for the assignment. If you see below that, you'll see these two buttons. One is called develop mode and one is called submit mode. So initially, you're going to be in develop mode, and develop mode is where you can write your code, edit your code, test your code before submitting it. So in develop mode, I could write my code here. Right below the two buttons, there's a window to enter some program input. So I can enter some input to test my code here, and then press the run program button. The run program button will compile your C++ code, create a program, and then take that input from this window here and use it to create some program output right below. So for this assignment, let's say I attempt to begin doing it. So right where it says type your code here, and I'll change that and I'll start writing my code. Okay, so I finished writing my code. I will just preface it by saying that I definitely wrote my code wrong, and I'll explain why it's wrong in a few minutes. But I've finished writing my code. I'm going to test my program here. So just so you know, if you have any errors in your code, so let's say that you're missing a semicolon, and if you're doing C++, you have to have a semicolon after every line of code for the most part. So let's say that I put in some input for my program. I run my program. So I have an error because I'm missing a semicolon. And so the output here will actually tell you specifically where you have an error, that you have an error, and where you have an error. So it's saying that I have an error before line 11 because they're expecting a semicolon before that line. So you can go and look. We do have line numbers here. Find the line before 11. Notice that you're missing a semicolon. So now that I fixed that, I can click Run Program again. And now I have some output. So just so you know, the code that I've written here is accepting a number as input. That's what this line is doing on line 7. Line 8 is actually outputting the number multiplied by itself. So I'm actually squaring a number instead of doubling the number, which is what the instructions tell me to do. But let's just say that I don't realize that I've read my instructions wrong. I think everything is fine. So I'll go to submit mode now. So in submit mode, the first time you go, you'll see for latest submission, no submissions yet. That's because I haven't submitted anything yet. So I can press submit for grading. This is something that I'm going to do when I am ready to submit the assignment, when I think it is done. You could also do this just to make sure that you're passing certain tests. If your assignment lists various tests that you need to pass. So if you want to just test that you've passed the first maybe 2 tests, you could always submit the assignment, make sure those tests pass, and then go back over into develop mode and continue working on your assignment. So I'll click submit for grading. and then I'll scroll down. So after I've submitted my assignment, I get some immediate feedback from the zyBook system letting me know how I did on this assignment, whether or not my code is working. So for the submission, my score is a 0 out of 4, which lets me know that my code is not working at all. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. I also have a timestamp on my code. This way you know exactly when it is that you've turned in your assignments. You'll likely have a due date for assignments, meaning that you need to turn in your code before a certain date. Now, the system itself won't stop you from turning in code after that date, but know that anything that you would turn in after that date would either be considered late by your professor or might not even be graded. So for this example, I do have 3 different tests. The first test is out of 1 point, the second test also out of 1 point, the third test out of 2 points. So this entire thing is worth 4 points. For the first test, the input for that test was 3, so that means 3 was being input to my program. My program was outputting the number 9, and the expected output was 6 with a new line. So a new line just means that you'd press, it's like pressing enter after the number. So the issue here, obviously, is that my program output is incorrect. And the way that you know from the zyLab that your output is incorrect is by these yellow highlights. Anything that is highlighted yellow is different from what is expected. So the 9 is highlighted because it wasn't expected. The 6 and the new line are highlighted because they are what was expected, and it's not what appeared in my output. I scroll down to the second test. The input was 0. We know that when 0 is multiplied by 0, it's still 0. When 0 is multiplied by any number, it's still 0. So the output was 0. That was good. So that's not highlighted. But a new line was still expected because I did say in the instructions that there should be a new line at the end. So it's missing this new line. That's why the new line is highlighted. Last but not least, the third test, -2 is the input. So the output should be -4 with that new line. My output is just 4. So if you notice again, the 4 is not highlighted because the 4 was expected, but a negative was also expected and the new line. And just so you know, we do have a character legend so that you can understand what some of these characters mean. So that new line character, it's made to look like a return carriage, which some of you might recognize from your computers. The return button sometimes has that character on it. You can look at our special character legend that will appear in all of these output tests to see what these characters mean. And it actually tells you how to create those characters in different programming languages. So in C++, you would create a new line using the end-L code word. So let me fix a few things. First, let me fix the end line, because obviously that's a problem in all of my tests. So if I submit it for grading again, my score's a little bit better. I got a 1 out of 4 this time. I can see that I passed that second test, but my first and third tests still have highlights in them. So as long as there's yellow highlighted in your tests, that means that those tests are still failing. But I've passed that second test now, so I do have 1 point out of the 4 possible points. And so now I have to fix the other thing. I'm multiplying the number by itself. I'm supposed to be doubling the number. So we'll multiply it by 2 this time. And then I'll submit for grading. And now you can see that I've passed all of the tests. So I have a total score of 4 out of 4. That submission was turned in at 9:10 a.m. and I have no yellow highlights in my tests. I could also download my submissions at any time. There's a download this submission button that will download the file to your computer. It's going to be called main.cpp. It'll be called whatever name the professor has the file named when they create this zyLab. And then if I scroll down even more, I'll see an area called previous submission. So I've only turned in this submission 3 times, or turned in this assignment 3 times. But if I have turned in my submission more than 6 times, what I'd be able to see here, or 6 times, what I'd be able to see here are my 5 previous submissions as well as my most recent submission. So when I say you can see your previous submissions, I mean that you can actually click on View, scroll down, and see the code that you submitted as well as how well you did on these tests. And so this could be important because if for some reason you make a mistake on your most recent submission that you did not make before, you can always go back to a previous version of your code by just copying. So you can Control A or Command A if you have a Mac, copy it, and then you could paste it back into your current submission window. So just know that you do have the ability to go back to a previous version of your code if you have to. One other thing that you can do, if you've made a mistake, like a really serious mistake, and you just need to start over, maybe you made a mistake to the starter code that was given to you, you can actually click Load Default Template. What this will do, this will erase your code, but it will reset everything back to the way it was when you started. Now, just because you've erased your code here doesn't mean you've gotten rid of your previous submissions. Those files are still here, so you could always restart with the default template, or you could just go back to a previous version of your code. Both of those options are available to you. As I said before, you can turn in your assignment multiple times, and the assignment for the most part is just going to be due when your professor says it's due. So make sure that your timestamp for your assignment is before that due date and time. Do you have any questions, or are there any questions? Okay. I'm not seeing anything pop up in the chat box, so I'm going to assume that that means there are no questions for now. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask your professor, and she should be able to answer many of those questions for you. I hope you guys have a great semester. And yeah, if you have any questions, just let your professor know. Thank you.